seems like that no matter who we are in life or no matter where we are in life, sometimes we all have a season of our life where we feel like that things just are out of sync and out of touch, and we get tired. We get weary, I guess you'd say. Here lately, I guess I never, in my younger days, I never really understood what the meaning of weary is as much as I do now. There comes to a point in life, I guess maybe age catches up with you, and all the things of life catches up with you, and you get to the point where you're weary. You just get tired, and we've had a rough past couple of weeks up to the month. We've done a lot of funerals, a lot of emotion spent. Trying to get things coming back in church with due to the COVID situation, and it's just, man, it just seems like there's so much to take away. And I don't know if you all feel that or not. I don't know if anybody besides me feels that. It's just like every which way you turn, the little Dutch boy, the story of the little Dutch boy who sticks his finger in the hole in the dike. No matter how many times you stick you plug a hole, there's always one more to plug, and there always seems like there's one more than you have enough fingers and toes for. There's always seems like there's something else that demands our attention to the point to where we feel like we're spread so thin. I'm sure I'm probably not the only person that ever gets that way, and it just seems like it's been that way over the past little bit, and I often think about that. I often think about how that we get overwhelmed. I know the biblical answer to that. Okay, I can tell you what the Word of God says about us and about what we're supposed to do with our care. I was having a particular moment the other night. I was sitting there and I turned the TV off. I was downstairs and I keep a Bible there where I can study it up, and I was just having one of those moments where I was talking to God and I was telling God how overwhelmed things seem, and just how God works. The very first scripture that I turned to, the very first verse that catches my eye is, cast all your cares upon Him, for He cares for you. Now, of all the places I could have opened my Bible to, of all the places that it could have fell open, of all the verses that could have caught my eye, that verse caught my eye. I mean, there's a lot of things that you say, well, it's just coincidence, but I believe without a shadow of a doubt that God Himself turned the page to that. To bring the thought to mind is that you cast your cares on Him because He cares for you. That's the biblical answer, right? That's how we are supposed to be. In the midst of our being overwhelmed, in the midst of our troubles, in the midst of our trials, in the midst of our weakness, we are to go to God and ask God to strengthen us, ask God to renew us, ask God to bring it about. And I believe it. I believe that God does that. But what happens when it doesn't happen right away? What do we do when the strength and the renewing and the joy is not so quick to return as it was to seemingly go away? You see, I've often thought about that, and I could preach a million sermons. I would love to get up this morning. I would love to preach to you about. I was praying this week. I was like, Lord, just let me preach a good old salvation message. Let me tell lost people about how your grace is needed. God, I really love to preach about that, and it never would really materialize. I prayed about it, and God said, it's not what I want you to do. I want you to be real and open and honest with folks, because there's a lot of people in the same situation. There's a lot of people that struggle just as bad sometimes. And not that I'm in any bad particular place. It's just not where you want to be sometimes. You know what I mean? And the 21st verse, it says this in the book of Lamentations. It says, this I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because His compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, saith my soul. Therefore I will hope in Him. The Lord is good unto them that wait for Him, to the soul that seeketh Him. As I was studying about what God would have for us to talk a little bit about this morning, this I was looking through the Bible, and I was searching, and I was studying, and I was just trying to find something to express the way that I feel, and knowing that a lot of people probably feel the same. And as I was looking at this scripture, and I was studying back and forth, and I was trying to find my place to where I could find a part of scripture that spoke to my heart so strongly. And I said, God, I want to be able to preach a message that will speak to people's hearts. I want to preach a message that will give people encouragement. I want to preach a message this morning that will lift people up and let them know that the place that we are now, whether you feel like you're just all over the place, where you feel like maybe your joy has been just kind of eroded over a period of time, where you feel like maybe that you're not where you really want to be. And I was like, God, please let me just find a place in the Scripture that speaks to people's hearts. And as I was studying, I came upon this Scripture. This I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. And I was like, God, you spoke to us in so many different ways. God, you have taught us in your word that your mercy is so great, and that God, that we can renew ourselves in you, that you are our high tower, you are our source of strength, you are our fortress, God. There is nothing that we can't do through you, that through Jesus Christ, that we are more than conquerors. We are on top of it if we just remember that. How often in the midst of our despair, though, do we have a hard time remembering? How often do we have a hard time remembering? As Andrea, a lot of times she'll tell the kids before they leave, she'll say, remember who you are and whose you are. How often do we have a hard time remembering who we are and whose we are? How often do we have a hard time remembering that we are a child of God? That we are a child of a Heavenly Father, that our brother, our adopted brother, our brother, Jesus Christ, lives in us by the Holy Spirit. That we are part of the family of God. Often in the midst of our despair, often in the midst of our lowest points, oftentimes we get to the point to where we just forget that, do we not? Oftentimes we forget that there's a new day. Oftentimes we have a hard time seeing the sunrise in the midst of a troubled time, do we not? I've got a good friend of mine at work. He's an older gentleman. And one of the things he does quite often is he comes in, a lot of times he'll come in later than I do. Most times when I come through, there's not even a sunrise. As I come through, I generally get there before the sun ever comes up. But he'll call me a lot of times if he's coming down the road and there's a beautiful sunrise. He'll say, hey, have you took time to look outside? I said, no, I haven't took time. He said, you need to walk outside and take a look. And I'll walk outside, and it'll be one of the most beautiful sunrises. The sky will be this brilliant color of orange and pink and purple, and it's nice to be reminded sometimes that the dawning of a new day happens to each and every one of us, and that God's mercies are renewed to us each day if we look for them. I think a lot of the times the reason we don't have joy in our life, the reason we don't have peace in our life, the reason that we don't rest in the goodness of God is because we choose not to. We choose to wallow in the mire of our troubles and trials. It's so often easy to focus on it, is it not? Oftentimes, is it not easier to focus on what the trouble is than the solution? I've often thought about that when I was in school. One of my greatest failures in school was word problems. You know, the one if train A is going 70 miles an hour this way, and train B is going 40 miles an hour this way, and they leave the track at a certain time, and they what point will they intersect? And I was like, I really don't care. As long as I'm on the train, I'm good. As long as I'm getting to where I need to go, I don't care. As long as it's on schedule, I don't care what time they intersect. I just wave at them when they pass by. We're good. I couldn't. And I would sit and I would stare at these problems, and I would read them. And I would look at them, and I would be so frustrated how complex the problem was. I would be frustrated about how could they expect me to know that train A is doing this and train B is doing this, and I would get so frustrated. And oftentimes the answer would be very simple, but I would be so frustrated looking at the problem that I would look past the answer. I think a lot of times that's what we do we not? We get so frustrated at all the problems of our life. We get so frustrated about the things that are not going right. We get so frustrated about the down times of our life that we look past the solution to the problem. We make it so complicated. The thing that I learned about it was just do simple math. You just do simple math, you break it down into steps, you do simple math, the answer is right there. Oftentimes, I think we as God's people, we get down, we have bad days, we have bad periods of our life, is because we refuse to break down the problem and see what it actually is. What's the problem? Well, it could be any myriad of things. It could be you're just tired. Maybe you're dealing with a lot of family issues. Maybe you're dealing with health issues. Maybe you're dealing with financial issues. Maybe you're dealing with relationship issues. Maybe you're dealing with job issues. And all this starts to come together. And what's really bad is when you start piling all that together. Sometimes you're having a relationship problem in the middle of a health problem, in the middle of a job problem, in the middle of a financial problem, and all that comes together. And you have to start breaking it down and seeing it for what it really is. But it doesn't really matter. And can I encourage you with something today? May I take a moment and encourage you with this? Is that it doesn't matter how many problems are there. It doesn't matter how you stack them up. It doesn't matter how you add them together. The solution is always the same. And that solution is Jesus Christ. Now you're going to look at me back and say, well, that's real easy for you to say, you're a preacher. No, it's not. It's not easy to say. I live it. I live each and every day with the troubles and the trials the same as you do. But one thing I've learned is that I have this I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. I have hope in Jesus Christ. The book of Proverbs tells us this, that 7 times a righteous man or a just man will fall, and he will rise up again. 7 times it says that a just man or a righteous man will fall 7 times, but he will get up. How does he get up? It's because God will get him up. God will enable him to rise. Now I know, and here's the crazy thing about that. We live our life like we're never supposed to fall. Right? We have this preconceived notion that we're never going to have a bad day. Maybe somebody has preached to you, and I hope I've not been that person. But maybe somebody has preached to you that you just come to know the Lord and you're always going to have a great day. Every day is going to be on top of the world. Every day is going to be great. You'll never have a bad day from here on out. Because when somebody preaches to you that, they're going to lie to you. Because I'm going to guarantee you, just as sure as the sun rose this morning, just as sure as God made little green apples, as a pastor friend of mine used to say, I will guarantee you this, that you, as a child of God, will have a bad day. There will be days when there will be trials that seem like they are so high that you can't get to the top of them. There will be days when it seems like the troubles that surround you are so vast and so great there's no possible way you can get past them. When he says 7 times a just man will fall, he will rise up. You see, there's a key to that, is that a just righteous man will fall. A just righteous man will fall. We will stumble. We will have our times. But here's the great thing, is we know that we have a God who is able to pick us up. I've often thought about the scripture where Jesus was in the boat. And it says that there was a great storm, and he was there asleep in the boat, and there was this horrendous storm going on. And it said the disciples were terrified, and they were just terrified about what was going on. They just knew they was going to die. And they went to Jesus and they woke him up and said, "Don't you care that we die?" You see, we like to tell the story like this: there's never a storm. We like to tell the story in our life, oh, there's never a storm. Preachers like to paint the story a lot of times as there's never a hard day. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I know what you're going to say. Oh, ye of little faith. Okay, here's the key. And this is what I look at a lot of times. These disciples walked with Jesus every day, and they still got scared. These disciples walked with him every day. They seen him raise the dead. They seen him make blind to see. They seen these things, and they got scared. You know what? I think I'm entitled to just a little bit of a weak faith moment every now and again. I believe you are entitled to a little bit of weak faith moment every now and again. Because I'm going to tell you something. It happens. It happens. And you know why it happens? Because here's the rest of the story. It says Jesus gets up and says, "Oh, you little faith." You know what? Peace be still, and it's done. The waters calmed down. The wind stopped, and Oftentimes, I wonder if God allows us, and I'm not trying to know the mind of God because His ways are higher than my ways, but I wonder sometimes if God doesn't allow things to happen in our life so that He can show us how much He cares and how much in control He really is. How often, though, do we live in the midst of our storm? Jesus was asleep in the back of the boat, right? And the men had done everything they could possibly do. They finally went to Him and said, "Hey, Jesus, would you please wake up? We're about to die here." How many of us never go to Jesus? How many of us are sitting there with our bucket trying to bail the ship ourselves? And we're running around trying to do everything ourselves. And only when we're taking on water and we can't possibly do anything else, then we go to Jesus. Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I need your power. Jesus, I need you to come in on the scene. Jesus, I need to live in the promise that tomorrow is a new day. Jesus, I need to live in that your mercies are new each and every day. Jesus, I need that now. How many of us are in the midst of our storm crying out to Jesus? More importantly, can I ask you a question? How many people here are where do you want to be with the Lord right now? How many people are in your relationship right now where you want to be with an almighty God? How many people walk out the door this morning and say, you know what, I'm totally at peace, I'm good. Hey, everything between me and God, we got it all off our chest, we're all good without this thing. Hey, we don't have no problems. We don't have no issues. We're all good. I doubt that that is the case. In the book of Psalms, Psalm 37, we know that we have hope and power in God. Because why? It says, because our steps are ordered by Him. It says, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. He delighteth in His way. Listen to this. Though he fall down, he shall not be utterly cast down. For the Lord upholdeth him with His hand. I have been young and now am old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. He is ever merciful and lendeth, and his seed is blessed. Do you hear what it says? He said, though he fall down, he's not utterly cast down. Though he falls, he's not utterly going to live in the failure of his fall. How many people do you know today? How many good Christian people that you know started out on fire for God, and they had a problem, they had a hiccup, they had a mess up in their life, and all of a sudden they walk away from their faith because they live in their failure. Well, I'm just so bad. I'm just so bad. God can't possibly love me through this. My Bible teaches me that God's mercy exceeds our worst failure. That His power exceeds our worst weakness. I love what the book of 2 Corinthians says about this. In the book of 2 Corinthians, the 12th chapter, he says, and this is Paul, he said, and he said unto me, Jesus said, my grace is sufficient for thee. My strength is made perfect in weakness. Paul then says, most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, and distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Jesus tells him, he says, listen, he said, my grace is sufficient for you. Why are you trying to rest on anything else? Don't worry about your strength. You worry about my strength. You worry about the one who conquered death, hell, and the grave. You worry about the one, amen, who was crucified. They thought they had beat him, was placed in a borrowed tomb. They rolled a stone in front of it, and praise God, on the third day, he came forth, praise God. You rest in that kind of strength. Now, I'll be honest with you. There's been a time in my life when I thought I was stronger. As I get older, I realize that I'm losing strength that I once had. I dug a post hole yesterday in some hard clay that absolutely kicked my hind end. When I got done last night, I was trying to drink a bottle of water, and my hand was shaking so bad. And I was thinking, Randy, how far have you gone? I was so wet. I was trying to hide, and I was about to hit myself in the lips with it. And I was like, gosh, this is ridiculous. Where my arms were so tired, I wrestled that hole all around and around and around. And it had roots in it and rocks. Of course, it had rocks. It's on our farm. And I beat and whooped and thrashed, and I was so wore out by that hole. I said, there was a time I'd have done 6 of those in a day and never even thought nothing about it. Now I get to one, I'm in the middle of it, and I'm gasping for air. And I realize I'm not as strong as I once was. The problem is, spiritually, a lot of us are never as strong as we think we are. We think we have it together. We think we are on top. We think we have it all sewed up, only to find out that it comes unraveled so easily. We think that we have it all together, to only find out that it takes very little to tear it all apart. That's the great thing is I'm glad that I don't have to rely on my strength today. I'm glad I don't have to rely on what I can do today, because my strength would fall so short of where I need to be. I'm glad to know that the strength of God and the strength of Jesus Christ takes us farther than we ever need to be and we ever have to go. I'm so glad that we can rely on the strength of Jesus Christ today. How many of us today came in here on top of the world? I mean, I look around, I'm just going to be quite honest with you. About half people are asleep, and about the other half looks like if you were to smile, they'd break your face. And that tells me that it's probably not everybody come in all fired up this morning. Some of you may have even come in tore up this morning. Some of you may even came in broken up this morning. But the answer is still the same. It's in Jesus Christ. In the book of 1 John, he tells us this. He said that if we will confess our sins, that he is faithful and just to forgive us. That if we will come to him and just confess where we're at, tell him, say, Jesus, I need your help. Jesus, I need you in my life. Jesus, I need your strength. Jesus, I need those mercies that are renewed day by day. Today is a new day, God. Today is another day. And God, I need you today. I need you even more today than I needed you yesterday. How many of us weary our minds and our hearts with all the things that are going on in our life? And I'm not saying that it's useless. I'm not saying that it's frivolous. I'm not saying that it doesn't deserve attention. Because if you're like me, everything probably deserves a little bit of attention in some form or fashion. But how many of us concentrate so much on all those things that we forget to recall that we have hope in God? Today's a new day, God. I need renewed more and more today than I did yesterday. You see, for a lot of us, I think we have gotten to the point to where we have forgotten that we can do all things through Christ, which strengthens us. This is what I like, and we're going to come to a close here in just a second. In Philippians, the 3rd chapter, he says this. He said, brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before. I press toward to the mark for the prize of the high calling in God in Christ Jesus. He says, this is one thing I do. He said, I'm not going to live in my failures of the past. I'm not going to live in how I struggled yesterday. I'm not going to live in what happened yesterday. I can't undo that. I can't manipulate that. I can't control that. But this is the one thing I can do, is I can press on towards the mark of the prize of the high calling of God in Jesus Christ. How many of us are so drugged down by our failures and our problems that we forget that we're headed that way? So often we are so busy looking back at what happened yesterday that we forget we're headed that way. How many of us are so busy looking at what we did wrong or what's bad that we forget that there's something great awaiting us? If God's people realize that the mercies are renewed each and every day, how much better would we be? I think sometimes we need to be reminded of how great God is and how small we actually are. We need to be reminded of God's power. We need to be reminded that God is in control. We need to be reminded that there is strength in Jesus Christ. We need to be reminded that when we're at our weakest state, that's when we really start living in the strength of God. God, I can't do it. I can't make it. I can't think it. I can't try it. But God, you can. God is through by your power. God is through and by you. That this whole day, God, I can't do nothing about yesterday, but today I have something I can do about. You know, it's often been said that every time that we wake up, every time that the sun rises, every time that there is a sunrise, that oftentimes we are reminded that it is a new day. It's a blank canvas. One for us to draw our whole new day on. But how many of us just draw the same picture we had yesterday? We wake up every morning with a blank canvas. We can do anything we want to with it. But how many of us just take our picture from yesterday and just copy it right over? When in reality, we could wake up in the morning and we could say, God, I may have failed yesterday so miserably bad. God, yesterday may have been a total train wreck and a disaster. But it's okay because that's not today. God, today your mercies are new. God, today your strength is renewed in me. God, today I choose to live in your hope. God, today I choose to live in your light, in your strength, in your power. God, my today will not be like yesterday because why? Because I choose today to live in you. I'm going to read this scripture to you again. I'm going to ask Kay if she will come and play a hymn of invitation. But it says, this I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, saith my soul. Therefore will I hope in him. The Lord is good unto them that wait for him, to the soul that seeketh after him. It is good that a man should both hope and quietly wait for the salvation of the Lord. I believe today, if you're at a place in your life where your life is in utter chaos, maybe there's things in your life that you really wish that you could change. Maybe there's things in your life that you wish you could do differently. Maybe it's not for the crowd here. Maybe it's for somebody that's watching on Facebook. Maybe it's for somebody in the parking lot. Maybe your life has gotten totally out of control. And you're saying, what do I do? What do I do? You start by coming to the Lord. Now, I know what you're going to think. You're going to say, well, if I come to the Lord just like that, everything is magically better. Oftentimes, I found that's not the case. Oftentimes, I found that when I bring things to the Lord, circumstances do not change magically. They just don't, health problems that are not there, family issues that are not there, or that are there, all these things that are there are not just magically just done away with. They're still there. Parents still get older. Health still fails. Things still happen. Jobs still have problems. And when you get up off your knees, all of a sudden it's like, your parents are now 30 years old again. You have no problems. The job's great. That's just the way it is. Your health is fine. But here's what I found is when I sincerely come to the Lord Jesus Christ, when I sincerely come to God and I humble myself before him and I pray, God, I need your help. God, I need you. I need your strength. When I get up, the problems are still there, but I'll tell you what, my attitude about it is totally different. My outlook is totally different. I'm not focused on the clouds, I'm focused on the sun. And I'm not focused on the weakness, I'm focused on his strength. So this morning, if you would like to, I'm going to ask if you will stand to your feet. As she plays, if you would like to come and just talk things over with the Lord, this would be a great time. I would pray that those that may be on Facebook or in the parking lot, if at this time, if you feel like, you know what, that's me, would you bow your head right where you're at and ask God, I need you. It's not about me, it's about you. As she plays.